We continue now at the top of Daf Yud Zayin Amud Aleph Masechah Shkolim. This is Shkolim Daf 17a. The Mishnah just listed the 4 gates that are in the southern part of the Azara, and the last of the gates was called the Shar Hamayim. And the Mishnah now says Shel Nitzach Hamayim B'Chag. The reason why that was called the Shar Hamayim was because it was through that gate that they brought in the jug of the Nitzach Hamayim that was used on Sukkos. And the Mishnah continues, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, he says a different reason why it's called Shar Hamayim. Bo Hamayim mefachim v'asidim lios yotzin mitachas miftan habayis. It's because through that gate, that's where the water is going to exit in the future. The Rivavon over here explains, Kedisa biyuma b'parak basra amar Rabbi Nachman mishum Rabbi Chana tzipora mayun hayotzim mibeis kodesh hakadoshim. This is all based on a nevuah in Yechezkel. So there was a spring that went from the kodesh kadoshim betchila doma lekarne silam. It was very thin in the beginning. Ad shemagia lepesach eichel came in shemagia lepesach eichel nasek echot shel shasi ad shemagia lepesach ulam nasek echot shel erev. This stream got bigger and bigger as it started to exit the Beis Hamikdash. When it got to the area of the Azar, that's this particular gate, it was the size of a pach katan, of a small jug. Hainu Tetanan, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer, Mai mefachin asidin lios yotzin. That's the idea of mefachin. That's how large the stream was. In the future, it's going to go out. Mitachas miftan habayis mefachim loshen pach. The word mefachim is a language of pach. So that's Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov's opinion of why it's called the Shar Hamayim. And the Mishnah continues, Lumasan, corresponding to the gates in the south. B'tzafon, you had gates in the north. Smuchim b'mayrev, they were near the western part, again on the north side of the Azara. Shar Yechonya, Shar HaKarbon, Shar HaNoshim, Shar HaShir. There was Shar Yechonya. The Mishnah is going to explain Shar Yechonya in a moment. Shar HaKarbon, it's called Shar HaKarbon because they used to bring the karbonos of Kodshei Kodshim, which were shechted in the north. Shar HaNoshim, it's called Shar HaNoshim because that's where the women used to enter to do smicha on their karbonos. According to the Mandamar, who says they're not allowed to do smicha, they would still enter through that side in order to stand over their carbon. And the Shar HaShir, that's where they used to bring in the musical instruments for the songs of the Leviim. V'lama nikra shemo Shar Yechonya. The Mishnah asks, why was the first gate that we listed, why is that called Shar Yechonya? The reason is Shaboyatza Yechonya begalusa. When Yechonya was exiled, that's the gate that he went into. What happened was he went into the Beis Hamikdash to bow and to ask for rachamim, and he left through that shar. So that's why it's called. He left through that shar for his golus. So that's why it's called Shar Yechonya. And the Mishnah continues, Sheba Mizrach, the gates in the east were Shar Nikanor. That was the first one, was Shar Nikanor. The reason why it was called Shar Nikanor was because of a miracle that's mentioned in Maseches Yuma. He brought these doors from Alexandria in a miraculous fashion. Ushnei Pispisin Hayulo, and now the Mishnah says that this Shar Nikanor, it had 2 smaller gates, 2 smaller doors that were attached, that were next to it. Echad miyamino ve'echad mismolo. One was to its right and one was to its left. Ushnayim b'mayrav, then the Mishnah finishes, there were 2 more gates in the west. V'lohayo lahen shem, they did not have a name. And the Gemara says, Masnisan Abba Yosef ben Yochanan here. Our Mishnah follows the opinion of Abba Yosef ben Yochanan. What does he say? He says, Do'amar keneged Yud Gimel Sha'orim. He says that the 13 bows that took place in the Mikdash, the 13 Hishtachavayos, were corresponding to 13 gates. B'ram Kirabanan, however, according to the Rabbanan, Shiva Sha'orim Hayu. There were only 7 gates in the Azara. Hayu Bazar. There were only 7 gates in the Azara, so therefore, Al Daita de Rabbanan, according to the opinion of the Rabbanan, Heichon Hayu Hishtachavos Halalu. Where exactly were these 13 Hishtachavos? In other words, if there were only 7 gates, so why were they bowing 13 times? So the Gemara answers, Kahida Tanin Tamon. It's like we learned in the Mishnah over there. This is a Mishnah Maseches Midos. Yor Gimel Pirtzos Hayubo. There were 13 pirtzos that were made in the Beis Hamikdash. There were 13 breaches that were made in the wall. Shepirtzom Malcha Yavan. The kings of Yavan, they breached the walls. The Chazru v'Gadru b'nei Chashmonai, and then the Chashmonaim came along and they fixed up the walls. They fixed up the holes that were in the walls. The Gazru Kenegdon Yud Gimel Hishtachavayos, and Keneged, corresponding to those 13 areas of the wall that were broken through, we have 13 Hishtachavayos. And we mentioned in the Mishnah that there was the Shar Hamayim. Again, this was the gate where in the future this stream would run out through this gate. So now the Gemara now mentions the Psukim in Zechariah that discuss this idea. Ksiv, the Pasuk says, it says that on that day in the future, this water will leave Yerushalayim. And the Gemara says, Tani, it was taught, mi beis kodshei kodashim ad ha-paroches kekarnei silei v'chiliyei. From the Kodesh Kadashim until the Paroches, this stream of water was extremely thin. It was like the horns of little insects, of like flies. Min paroches ad mizbach hazav, from the paroches until the mizbeach hazav, that's the inner mizbeach, the golden mizbeach. Kekarne chagavim, it was a little thicker. It was like the horns of chagavim, like the horns of locusts. Mi mizbach hazav ad azaras, from the mizbeach hazav, from the golden mizbeach until the azara. Then it got a little thicker. Kechut shel shasi, it was like the thread of the shasi. The shasi was part of the weavers. That was one particular thread, so that was a little thicker. Min hazaras ad miftan habayis, then from the azaras until the miftan habayis. So then again it got a little bit thicker. Kechut shel erev, it got to be like the chut of the erev, also part of what the weavers used, the erev thread. Mikan va'elach, and from there and onward, kemipi hapach, that's where it got to the size of the pach, the size of the jug. And we should note over here the gears of the gra, hachigar sinon, mimizbeach hazav lemiftan habayis. First comes the miftan habayis, kechut shel shasi, that's like the chut shel shasi. Mimiftan habayis la azar, kechut shel erev, then from the miftan habayis to the azara was kechut shel erev. Mikan va'elach, in other words, according to the gra, first it goes from the mizbeach hazav to the miftan habayis. The miftan habayis was probably like the entrance of the heichal, and then it goes from the miftan habayis to the azara, not the azara before the miftan habayis. He points out the hachik ksib b'kroi. That's actually what it says on the psukim. V'nei mayim yotzim mitachas miftan habayis u'loshom bo min hamizbeach k'masha kosav sham u'miftan habayis kodem li'azara. The miftan habayis is before the azara. And the Gemara now continues and discusses Psukim in Yechezkel, which talk about this water that flowed out of the Beis HaMikdash. Ksiv, the pasuk says, "V'nei mayim mefachim in hakosef hayimonis." The water was coming out from the right shoulder. This is a reference to, again, the southern gate, the Shar HaMayim. B'tzeiso ish kodem v'kav biyado. Then a man came with a measuring rod in his hand. This refers to the Malach that had the measuring rod in his hand. V'yimad elef ba'ama v'yavirein b'mayim me'afosim. Then the pasuk says that it took me, measured 1,000 amos, and took me in the water up to the afosim, meaning ad karsula, until the ankles. The water was as deep, Yechezkel says, as his ankles. V'yimad elef v'yavirein b'mayim me'berchayim ad berchaya. Then the pasuk says another 1,000 amos, and the water was up to his knees. Vayimad elef vayavireni me mosnayim ad mosnaya. Then the pasuk says another 1,000 amos, and the water was up to the thighs. Mikan va'elach, from then onward, vayimad elef, he measured 1,000 amos. Nachal ashalucha lavor afilu lebironin gedola and yechola lavor bo. Again, the pasuk says it was a stream that couldn't be crossed, and the Gemara says even for a large ship, it was not able to cross this water. And the Gemara continues, my time, what is the reason why we're interpreting the pasuk to mean that even a ship was not able to sail across these waters? So the Gemara now quotes a pasuk in Yeshaya, V'tzeyadir lo yavirenu. Pasuk says exactly this: the large ship was not able to cross. Mifnei, what's the reason? As the pasuk says, Ki go hamayim meisachu. Again, the waters were very strong. Gemara now wants to know, what is this language of meisachu? Mayim meisachu. What's the language of meisachu? Milosha, that's exactly what it means. It means that the ships were not able to cross the sea. Amar Rav Chona says, Be'asrin karu l'shaita sechona. In our land, that's exactly what they call ships that are sailing. They call it sechona. Gemara quotes another pasuk with the same idea. Peres yada b'kirbo kasher yifaris hasocha lischos. Again, same basic idea. It means that the ship is not able to pass through. The Gemara says, Mao lischos. What does it mean, lischos? Another gears over here is Mao meisachu. What's another interpretation of meisachu? Why is it called meisachu? Amar Rabbi Yossi bei Rabbi Bon. Rabbi Yossi bei Rabbi Bon answers, Mayon de mismalalin bialma. What it means is, it's the waters that the people are talking about, a language of sicha, a language of conversation. There's such a large, strong flow of water, people are so shocked that they discuss it. And the Gemara says another pasuk that talks about, this is again a pasuk in Yechezkel, talking about these waters. Ksiv, the pasuk says, Bayom ahu yeh mekor niftach lebeis David uleyoshvei Yerushalayim lechatos ulenida. It says on this day, again, there's going to be a spring that is going to be open for the Beis David and those in Yerushalayim, and it's going to be lechatos ulenida. The implication of the pasuk is, this pasuk, this water is going to be kosher almost like a mikveh. It's going to be kosher as mechatos, to purify someone who becomes tamei meis. It's going to be kosher as a mikveh for a nida. And the Gemara here explains, Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachman b'shem Rabbi Yonasan. Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachman says in the name of Rabbi Yonasan, Mi beis David v'ad Yoshvei Yerushalayim. The meaning of the pasuk is as follows: from the house of David until the areas of Yerushalayim, kesherim l'nido lechatas. This water will be kosher for a nida and for mechatas. However, mikan va'elach, from then onwards, mei ta'arovesheim. So then already it's going to be a mixture of stream water and rainwater. So in such a case, ksherim Kseirim Lenida, that's okay as far as a Nida is concerned. However, Upsulam Lemechatas, that's no good for Mechatas. For Mechatas, you need what's called Mayim Chayim. You need flowing water. It can't be, it can't have a mix of rainwater in there, so it's going to be possible for Mechatas. Amar Rebbe Lazar says a different explanation. Beis David v'ad Yoshvei Yerushalayim kasherim lenido lechatas. Again, as we said before, from Beis David until the areas of Yerushalayim, the water will be kosher for nidar and for mechatas. Mikan v'elach, but from then on, it's not because of the rainwater. Rather, make katafrisa saying. Rather, it's a very steep. The water travels on a very steep incline, and in such a situation, psulin lenida ulechatas. It's going to be possible for both nida and for mechatas. And the Gemara now continues quoting Psukim in Yechezkel that also discuss this same stream. Ksiv, the pasuk says, "Vayomer Eli," he said to me, "Hamayim ha'ela yotzim el haglilo hakadmona." It says these waters, they went to the four bodies of water that surround Eretz Yisrael. The Glila HaKadmona refers to the body of water in the east. Ze Yam Shel Simcho, that refers to the Yam Shel Simcho. Then the pasuk says, V'yardu el ha'arava. What is the Arava? Ze Yam Shel Tiveria. That means the stream went into the Yam of Tiveria. Uvo Hayama Ze Yam HaMelech. And then Bo Hayama refers to the Yam HaMelech. And then El Hayam HaMotziyam Ze Hayam HaGadol. That refers to the Yam HaGadol, the Mediterranean. V'lama Nikra Shmo Motziyim. Why is the Yam HaGadol called Motziyim? Keneged Shtei Pa'amim Sheyatz. It's actually 2 times in history when that body of water threatened to flood the world. Echad B'dor Enosh. That was 1 time in the generation of Enosh. V'echad B'dor Haflaga. And 1 time during the Dor Haflaga, during the time of Migdal Bavel. And the Gemara says, Rebbe Lazar b'shem Rabbi Chanina. Rebbe Lazar says in the name of Rabbi Chanina, Barishona Yotza ad Calabria. Originally, when it threatened to flood the world, it went to the country called Calabria. This is an area in France. Uvishniya, and the second time, meaning again in the Dor Haflaga, Yotzad Kipe Beravria, went until the rocks of Ravria. And the Gemara brings in an alternative opinion. Rabbi Acha b'shem Rabbi Chanina. Rabbi Acha says in the name of Rabbi Chanina, Barishona, the first time in the Dor Enosh, Yotzad Kipe Beravria, went until the rocks of Ravria. Uvishni, and the second time in the Dor Haflaga, Yotzad Akko vad Yafo, the flood waters went until Akko and Yafo. And the Gemara here quotes Psukim to that effect. The pasuk says, Ad po tavo v'lo sosif. Until here you're going to go, until here the waters will flow, won't go any further. And that means to say, Ad Akko tavo. Until Akko the waters will come, v'lo sosif, won't go any further. Upo yashis begon galecha. That means Ad Yafo ashis gon galecha. The waves are going to go until Yafo. And the Gemara says, Nicha Yamarava v'Yama Demilcha. Now I understand why the waters would flow to the Yamarava, meaning again the Mediterranean, and the Yam HaMelach, B'shvil Miskan. That's in order to fix those waters. Those were salt waters. Those were waters that were dirty with salt, and we're cleaning the waters. The stream is flowing to them. In the future, it will purify these waters. But Yama de Taveri and Yama de Samcho, the Yama de Taveri and the Yama de Samcho, what's the purpose of the waters flowing to those bodies of water? Those bodies of water are fine anyway. And the Gemara says, L'rabos de Gossam, it's in order to increase the amount of fish that is contained in these waters. Techsibbe, like the pasuk says, Lemina tia de Gossam, meaning Lemine minim tia de Gossam. Many different species of fish are going to increase in these waters. And the Gemara continues, Tani, it was taught, Amar Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says, Maisa shalachti l'Tzaydon. One time I went to Tzaydon. Ve'hiviu lefanai yoser mishlosh meyos minei dogim. They brought in front of me more than 300 different kinds of fish. Betam choyechad, in one plate. The idea being you can have many, many species of fish, and that's what's going to happen in the future with these bodies of water. And the Gemara continues elaborating on the psukim in Yechezkel. V'nirpu amayim b'tseisa v'gabav v'lo yirapu lamelach nitnu. Pasuk says that again the stream is going to flow into these bodies of water and heal it. But then the pasuk at the end says v'lo yirapu. Apparently it's not going to heal. They're going to continue to have salt. So the Gemara asks, Ksiv v'nirpu amayim. It says that the waters are going to be healed. V'yat amrit v'lo yirafu amayim. And then it says it's not going to be healed. So the Gemara answers, Malkum hu shmo v'lo yirapu. The end of the pasuk is referring to a location, and the name of that location was called v'lo yirapu, meaning that body of water was called v'lo yirapu. The idea is that the waters will not reach that particular body of water. Ksiv yal hanachal yalel sefaso mizeh mizeh kol eitzmacha lo yivol aleu v'lo yisom periov l'chadoshav yivakir. Again, it's talking about this particular stream as the psukim continue, and it seems to say that the stream is going to come, and all of the trees and all of the fruits are going to ripen. So the Gemara now explains, Tani was taught, Amar Rabbi Yehuda says, Lefisha bo'olam hazeh, because in this world, meaning nowadays, Tavua osa l'shisha chadashim, it takes grain 6 months to ripen. V'ilon osa l'shnei masar chodesh, and it takes a tree 12 months to produce its fruit. Avala asid lava, but the pasuk is saying that in the future, hatvua osa l'chodesh echad, the grain will take only 1 month. V'ilon osa l'shnei chadashim, and a tree is going to be just 2 months. My time, what's the reason? L'chadash of Yevaker. That's clear in the psukim. It says l'chadash of Yevaker. And the Gemara continues, and Rabbi Yossi gives a slightly different interpretation. Amar Rabbi Yossi says, Lefisha bo'olam hazeh, because in this world, hatvua osa l'shisha chadashim, it takes the grain 6 months, that's the same as before. V'ilon osa l'yud beis chodesh, and it takes the trees 12 months, that's the same as before. Avala asid lava, but Rabbi Yossi changes what's going to be in the future. In the future, hatvua osa l'tesvav yom, the grain will be able to grow within 15 days. V'ilon osa l'chodesh echad, and the trees will be able to produce within 1 month. Shekain matzino sha'asas hatvua b'mei Yoel. That's exactly what we find in the days of Yoel. The grain was produced l'chamisha asar yom. It was produced in 15 days. V'karev mimena ha'omer, and the omer was able to be brought within 15 days. The idea here is that the rain came in those times on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, and they were already able to bring the grain. They were already able to bring the korban ha'omer by the 15th of the month. My time, and what's the reason? Meaning, where do we see this in the Psukim in Yoel? Pasuk says, "Uvenei Tzion gilu v'simcha b'Hashem Elokechem, ki nasan lechem es hamor l'tzedakah v'yorad lechem geshem moro malkush barishon." It's exactly what it says. It says that it rained barishon. It rained right at the beginning of Nisan. Uma mekayim Rabbi Yossi l'chadash of Yevaker. Fine. So what does Rabbi Yossi do with l'chadash of Yevaker, which implies that it's 2 months? So for that he says, "B'chol chodesh v'chodesh yeh mevaker," means each and every month the trees will be able to produce. V'yoleu l'srufa. Now, what does the pasuk mean when it says v'yoleu l'srufa? This refers to some kind of healing that will take place from the stream. So Rabbi Yochanan Amar tarpea meitzitz aleha. So Rabbi Yochanan says the idea over here is that the fruits are going to be more than the leaves. You're going to see the fruits in the trees more than you see the leaves. So the Gemara asks, V'taraf mizona, is that really true that the word taraf, you're interpreting the word tarufa over here as mizona, referring to food, referring to fruits? Is that really the meaning of the word? So the Gemara instead gives an alternative explanation. Rav u'Shmuel, Machlokas Rav u'Shmuel, exactly what this pasuk means. Charomer lahatir pesha lamal, and one says v'yolei l'trufa means that the mouths above, meaning people who are mute, people who cannot speak, they will be healed by these waters. The other one says it means that those people who are not able to have babies, pesha lamatan, the opening underneath, those people who can't have children, they will be healed. Rabbi Chanina of Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, the Gemara says similarly, it's the same machlokas between Rabbi Chanina and Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. One says again, it's to heal those who are barren, those who cannot have children. The other one says it's to heal those who are mute, those who cannot speak. And the Gemara continues quoting the Mishnah, Ulumasan B'tzafan V'chulu. The Mishnah said that in the north you had the gates, and one of the gates in the north was called the gate of Yechanya. Gemara now says that story, why it's called the gate of Yechanya. At Motzi b'shah sha'ala Nebuchadnezzar lekan ba v'yashav lo b'dufni shel Antochia. When Nebuchadnezzar came up to Eretz Yisrael, he stayed in the open fields of Antochia. V'yatza Sanhedrin gadol lekraso, and the great Sanhedrin came towards him to greet him. V'yamar lo, and they said to him, Higia zman habayis hazeh lecharif. Are you here because is it the time that the Beis Hamikdash is supposed to be destroyed? Have you come to destroy the Beis Hamikdash? Amar Leni said to them, No, oso shemlachti aleichem. Rather, the person who I made king over you, Teneuli, give him to me. V'ani holech, and then I'm going to go. So Bo v'amru Yehoyachin melech Yehuda. So they came and they told Yehoyachin, who was then the king of Yehuda, Nebuchadnezzar boilach, Nebuchadnezzar wants to take you. Kevan sheshama mehen kach, when he heard this, natal maftecho shel Beis Hamikdash, he took the keys of the Beis Hamikdash, and olo legago shel heichal, and he went up to the gag, to the roof of the heichal. Amar lefanav, and he said, Ribono shel olam, master of the world, l'sha'avar hayinu ne'emanim lach. In the past we were trusted by you, v'hayu miftechosecha mesurin lanu, and we had access to your keys. Achshav she'einanu ne'emanim, now that we are not trusted by you, harei miftechosecha mesurin lach, let me return your keys to you. And the Gemara says, Train Amoraim, there's a machlokas regarding the story between two Amoraim. Chad Amar Zarkan va'od lo yerdu. There's one opinion that he threw them up to the heavens and they didn't come down. The Chad Amar, another opinion is, Ba kimin yad v'natlasan miyadu. There was like a hand that came out of heaven and took it from his hands. Kevan Sharo call, when everybody saw this, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Yud Zayin Amud Beis.